Welcome to Aotearoa New Zealand, the land of the long white cloud. Some people here say that the trees are older than the people. They're quite right. You see, the occupation of this country by humans is less than 700 years in the making. And whilst our archaeology is very, very young, every human who stepped on this country has left their mark. For this talk, we're going to look at one region, and then when we get there, we'll look at one object. The region we're going to is the West Coast. Now, the early surveyors described this region as so desolate, so wet, so rugged, that they would only send criminals here. Thankfully for us at the time, they didn't look under their feet, because the natural transforms of the Pacific fault line meant that the minerals that would have to be tunneled for in other parts of the world could be found right under your feet. So when gold nuggets were found up a river valley in Hokitika in the late 1800s, the West Coast soon became the most populated region in New Zealand. One such person who came to the coast at this time was a Mrs. Bernard, and on the boat that she travelled on, she took this Bible. This Bible has been handed down through her family members, and whilst you would think, okay, it's just a Bible, it's significant for the family, it is also significant for the people of the coast. It gives them a sense of what life was like on the coast during mining times. Why? Because within the Bible, the family kept obituaries, and these obituaries tell stories not just of their family member but also of the people those members encountered. Take for example Mrs. Burgess's own obituary. Apparently the boat she travelled on also had a Mr. Sutherland on it. Now Mr. Sutherland was associated with the Burgess gang. The Burgess gang had come up to the West Coast from the Otago gold fields, and they had along the way robbed and murdered in order to get their gold. By the time they got to a small town called Canvastown, they had killed 5 miners. Sutherland, one of the gang's members, decided at that point that he would sooner dob his mates in and get the bounty rather than face up to the consequences of his actions. So Burgess and Kelly and Levy, the other 3 gang members, were all hanged, and Sutherland was let off scot-free. The reality was, he was anything but scot-free on the coast. And when he arrived in Hokitika with Mrs. Sutherland, the reception he got there was hostile. His journey from this point on is unknown. At the end of Mrs. Bernard's Bible, there's another story. You see, her family married into the Cox family. The Cox family were a very famous family on the West Coast because they had lived there from the beginning of European settlement, and they owned a pub. They were related, this obituary tells us, to the Hart family. And the Hart family, this particular guy, Roger Hart, he was in charge of Chinese customs. Another dark page in New Zealand history. Roger Hart would have been instrumental in making sure the New Zealand laws that were around discriminating and making life difficult for Chinese miners in the 1800s were actually in actuality. Chinese miners came to New Zealand typically from the Cantonese areas of China to make enough money to send home. But the jealousy of the West Coast mining community soon saw them having to pay astronomical taxes just to arrive in New Zealand, and then getting treated like rubbish once they were here. This Bible might only give us 2 stories, but the stories give us a sense of the harshness of mining in the early days, especially in towns that come and go overnight. Mining built on hope, but fueled by jealousy. Thankfully, many of these families still exist on the coast, and these stories still exist on their bookshelves. So if you're ever here on the West Coast, don't just ask for a whitebait patty, ask a local or 2 for a story or 2.